putumela. Eda she putumela.
Amandla! Kaweto! Happy birthday, EFF! Happy birthday! Happy birthday, EFF! Happy birthday! Oh, Mati EFF! Oh, students, come on! I'm so fond of Mahala! Angengane! Hiyo ala! Mati EFF! Oh, students, come on! I'm so fond of Gengane! Angengane! Hiyo ala! Kokalua la la! Kokalua la la! Hiyo ala! Oh la la! Oh la la! Oh la la! Hiyo ala! Kokalua la la! Kokalua la la! Hiyo oh la la! Oh la la! Oh la la! Allah! Amanda! Away two. Thank you very much. Let us be seated, fighters. We want to take this opportunity to officially greet the Deputy President of the EFF, Commissar FLOYD SHIVAMBU, on his right. On his right, we have the Treasurer General of the EFF, Commissar Mpile Mautwe. And then before I start my program director duties, we're going to hand over to the Provincial Secretary of the EFF here in the Northwest Province. Sorry, Northern Cape. I call my fighter in the Northern Cape Province to come and do an open and welcome. I bless the event here tonight. That call is our fighters. I'm in Northwest.
Halala Northern Cape, halala. Viva EFF, viva. Viva EFF, viva. Viva CIC, Julius Malema, viva. Viva CIC, Julius Malema, viva! Happy birthday, EFF, happy birthday! Happy birthday, EFF, happy birthday! Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The sound is not so good. Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the Deputy President of the EFF. Also welcome TG of our organization, EFF, the Student Command, all the ground forces and the students, fighters, you are welcome in this gathering. I don't want to be long. I think the Northern Cape students have been waiting for a very long time this opportunity, DP. And as a result, they did exercise their rights on May to show that indeed their hope is within the EFF. And the young people and the students of the Northern Cape went out to give a strong mandate that the EFF must take the lead in the Northern Cape. And because of that, discipline as you are, comrade, what you did, you put us on a very good map as an EFF throughout the country. Northern Cape performed very well. And I want yourself to give yourself a very good hand of applause. DP said that one of my commitments, I want to come and speak to the student as we are entering the second decade, so that I can give them umkombandlela. as to what is it that is expected from us as a student and the ground forces and the fighters of the Northern Cape. So today, DP, young people are here to come and listen to you. And we want to say that you are welcome in the Northern Cape. I want to give over to the chairperson so that we can start the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Provincial Secretary. Very quickly, fighters, we're going to call on your provincial leadership. We're not going to call all of you. We're just going to ask some of you to stand up and wave. Thereafter, we're going to give to the Deputy Secretary General of the EFF Students Command. She will also ask the CSCT leaders to just stand up and wave, and then we can be able to continue the program. Very quickly. Convener Coordinator, quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, students of Sol Plaiki. I'm going to thank the branch. I'm going to thank the branch who did a massive job. Our convener, Dimitri van Niekerk, thank you, along with the coordinator, Fighter Chokville. We thank you very much. This one. Okay, thank you, guys. So I'm just going to give over to the convener to just allow the other provincial members to just say hello. Thank you, fighters. Thank you very much.
Amandla! Amandla! Away to! Thank you very much, Makabani. Without any waste of time, I will then request that all CSCT, all provincial leaders and CSCT members. Okay, all provincial members, can you just wave so that comrades can see you? Can we see you? Can you see you, Makabani? Can we see you? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the province. Just very briefly before I give the Deputy Secretary General of the EFF Students Command, Deputy President, last year here we won SRC elections. Even though the Premier of the ANC brought KFC, brought jumping castles, brought T-shirts, we defeated them with their KFC. And even in the upcoming elections, Deputy President, we're making a commitment. They must bring the KFC again. We're going to eat it and vote for the EFF Students Command. They must bring the jumping castle. We're going to jump and vote for the EFF Students Command. Amanda! Aweto! Very quickly, SRC President.
Amandla! Aweto! Maibuye! I-Africa! Maibuye! I-Africa! Thank you very much.
Thank you, SRC President. Deputy Secretary General, please come close. Very quickly, this is the Deputy Secretary General of the EFF Students Command to introduce and greet CSCT leaders.
Amandla! Away to happy birthday, EFF! Happy birthday! Happy birthday, EFF! Happy birthday! No, thank you very much, President. Let me take this opportunity and greet the national leadership of the EFF, led by the Deputy President, Komsa FLOYD SHIVAMBU, and the Treasurer General, Komsa Ompile Mawotwe. And let me also greet the provincial leadership. Let me also greet the provincial leadership of Northern Cape that is led by the provincial secretary, Komsa Z. Kwinana. Let me also greet the leadership of the EFFSC, led by Komsa Sihle Lonzi. Mine is not long again. I'm just here to introduce the leadership of the CSCT. But before doing that, I feel like it would be wrong for me not to wish the EFF an 11th happy birthday. Our political home, Sifisela konke okuhle sithi mayikhule iye phambili iqhubeke ilwele abantu abamnyama. So with that being said, I would like to, okay, when I call the CSCT members, I'll just call them by their names and their portfolios, and can just please stand up and then wave. We'll start with the provincial chairperson of the Eastern Cape, FLOYD Abenda. We are also joined by the provincial chairperson of Limpopo, FLOYD Rochizo Mukwevo. There she is. The student support officer of the CSCT, FLOYD Clifford Chweni. Yes, there she is. And then we're also joined by the stakeholder relations officer, FLOYD Asemahle Ntumtum. We also have the national organizer, FLOYD Lindelani Mbuyisa. And then we also have the deputy president of the EFF Students Command, FLOYD Mzwisi Mnotoza.
Mandla! Mandla! Hawetho! Happy birthday, EFF! Happy birthday! Happy birthday, EFF! Happy birthday! Futek, Sasko, Futek! Futek, Sasko, Futek! Futek, Sasko, Futek! Hoza for education, Hoza! Hoza for education, Hoza! Pilangona Pagate, student command, Pilangona Pagate! Pilangona Pagate, student command, Pilangona Pagate! President.
Sound, please assist us. There is a noise in the background, and also some of these speakers, please let them point in this direction so that when the deputy president speaks, he's able to also hear himself. We're also going to move fast. Oh, fighters, we also have a councillor from the Mpumalanga province, Councillor Mafia. Is here with us. He has been here with us for the past 3 weeks. Those of you who have been doing groundwork with us, you will know we have been doing door-to-door together. He'll come in at the end for announcements. So without wasting any time, fighters, we're going to call on the Treasurer General of the EFF to come and introduce our keynote address. I would advise that now, fighters, those of you, I know some of you came from class, take out your notebooks, take out your pens, your pencils, because you are about to be taken through a proper political school by the Deputy President of the EFF. For sure, if you follow the parliamentary channel and you have listened to the Deputy President of the EFF, this is a very important opportunity that you have to leave this place having understood the history of the EFF, but not only the EFF, the history of the struggle of economic freedom in South Africa and its roots and where it comes from. So please be attentive, please listen, please pay attention. Thank you very much, Treasurer General.
Mandla. 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 Aykhole EFF, aykhole. Aykhole EFF in Kimberley, aykhole. Aykhole EFF in Sonplaki University, aykhole. Aykhole EFF Francis Bart region, aykhole. Aykhole EFF Northern Cape, aykhole. Happy birthday, EFF. Happy birthday. Thank you very much, President. Let me take this opportunity to greet all of you fighters, commissars, the PCT led by Commissar Z. Kwinana, the PSCT the CSCT led by President Sihle, Fighter Mafia, our councillor from Mpumalanga, the first councillor in Mpumalanga of the EFF. So comrades, I'm here. My task today is a very easy task of introducing our Deputy President. The EFF was formed 11 years ago. It is the only emancipation movement in the continent and the diaspora. It is the only post-liberation era movement that seeks to achieve those that the former liberation movement does not achieve. Yeah, maybe he says I must finish. Allow me to introduce a very disciplined, committed leader of our movement. A leader who leads from the front. The commissar responsible for policy and research in our the commissar who's responsible for policy and research in our movement to guide this revolution. A commissar who always reminds us that whatever decision we take as the EFF, we should be asking ourselves, how will this benefit our people? The second in command, Deputy President FLOYD. Let's try this one.
I don't know which one is better. And you use the same guys of this. The guy, the owner of the sound.
Amandla. 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 Viva EFF, viva. Long live the economic freedom fighters. Long live. Long live the economic freedom fighters. Long live. Long live the economic freedom fighters. Long live. Forward to socialist economic freedom in our lifetime. Forward. Forward to socialism. Forward. Amandla. Away to. Now, thank you very much, Treasurer General of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Commissar Ompile Mautwe. So Commissar Ompile Mautwe was the provincial coordinator of the Economic Freedom Fighters, which was the host of the date that we are celebrating today, the 26th of July, which is the date that the Economic Freedom Fighters was founded. The leadership of the EFF Students Command, the Provincial Secretary of the EFF here in the province of Northern Cape, Fighter Z Kwinana. But most importantly, ourselves, fighters as ground forces of the EFF. We send the revolutionary greetings on behalf of the Central Command team of the EFF, on behalf of the entire membership of the EFF. We have been mandated that before we go to celebrate and mark the 11th years of existence of the EFF, we should pause and have this political school just to remind ourselves of where do we come from, so that we have got clarity of where we are going as a movement. And we want to take this opportunity to congratulate the students here in Sol Plateau University for winning the SRC elections decisively and the entirety of the Northern Cape. But also congratulate all the students who are in the Students' Command, the EFF Student Command, for having done well in different SRC elections. What is very inspiring now, TG, is that if you look into the results of the 2024 elections, the EFF got to receive the highest votes in areas where institutions of higher learning are. So if you go to Ward 60 in Johannesburg, you can see the results that even in terms of the sequencing, the EFF received the highest votes in the areas around Wits University, in the areas around Walter Sisulu University in the Eastern Cape, in the areas, Ward 12 in Makana, where Rhodes University is. The EFF won the wards decisively. In Nelson Mandela, in almost all institutions of higher learning, the EFF got to gain a lot of votes due to the role and the participation of the EFF Student Command. It looks like what we said when we opened the EFF Students Command launching conference, and launching assembly on the 15th of June 2015, that the role of students and student command is to reproduce yourself. Such a task seems to be finding expression now. Because the simple message that we said is the role and obligation of all the students in the EFF is that you must reproduce yourself politically and ideologically. You must give birth to yourself. That you must be able to make everyone else see society and understand society in the same way that you do. So fighters, this is definitely a political school. It's a political lecture where we are going to reflect on some of the issues that define the Economic Freedom Fighters. What is this organization, the Economic Freedom Fighters? What are its manifestations? How does it manifest itself? How does it exist? When you talk about the EFF, what is it? And we have to do so because from time to time, if not consistently, we should always ground the work of the EFF in proper and sound revolutionary theory. So Vladimir Lenin, whom the Leninist character of the EFF is inspired through, says that without a revolutionary theory, there cannot be a revolutionary movement. So the EFF is an organization that is always inspired by a revolutionary theory so that it can be guided into proper revolutionary action. It must do what Karl Marx says, that you can't just go into practice without proper theoretical grounding. And you cannot just exercise theory without combining it with practice, because such will lead to sterility. But also we have to take this pause because we take a very important lesson from Noel Isidore Sankara, Thomas Sankara, who says that a soldier without proper political and ideological training is a potential criminal. So we're avoiding producing criminals out of you. We have to do political education from time to time so that all of us are politically conscious and understand what is expected of us. Now, fighters, one thing that you must know is that political education and political classes, political lectures and political addresses, it's not possible that in the first touch with some of the issues that we're going to talk about here today, you're going to understand everything. So there are certain things that you will not know, certain words that are going to be used which you are not immediately familiar with. That cannot be a point of discouragement. It must be for you to take note and say, they are speaking about the irreconcilability of class antagonisms that lead to the formation of the state. What does that mean? So that is basically the issues that, so from time to time, you should take note of the areas which you are not immediately familiar with. And we have to take this particular approach of talking about the politics of the EFF. Because if we do not talk about the politics, the revolutionary politics of the EFF, we are just going to get used with what we have now everywhere. We will not realize, we will not develop adequate class consciousness and awareness that we have to fight on to bring about true emancipation in our lives. You know, there's a revolutionary whom we must take note of and he must go and study further, called Assata Shakur. She says that people get used to anything. The less you think about your oppression, the more your tolerance for it grows. So, the more, when you don't talk about your conditions, you will end up accepting what is not supposed to be. You will think that everything else is normal when it is not normal. So that is why you have to do that, to speak about our conditions. Now, I have to talk about this because it's also very important that the part of the reasons why we have to give political lectures and talk about our politics is because political education in its very nature has got very important role to play. One is that political education is an important instrument, one, to raise your levels of class and political consciousness. So for you to understand where we are, where are we fighting? When we say we're fighting, we're in a struggle for economic freedom. Who are we fighting against? What are we fighting for? You need proper political consciousness, awareness of where we're fighting. Number two, political education is very important as an instrument of persuasion, as an instrument and mechanism of persuasion. At the end of everything else that we say, as revolutionaries, the most important tool that we have is our ability to persuade, to convince other people. So even if your method of struggle to take political power is going to be through armed struggle, you still have to convince people that your cause is just. For you to take political power, to win elections, you must have the power to persuade, to make people see the world and understand society and the immediate circumstances through persuasion. And political education is therefore an important mechanism, an instrument of persuasion. That is why we should always employ political education as an instrument of persuasion. But also political education is an instrument that solidifies organizational democracy. So if all of us are aware of how the organization operates, no one is going to violate how the organization should operate. No one is going to communicate a different perspective of the organization, because all of us will be aware. When a person says they're going to speak on behalf of the EFF, you know that they're going to say certain things. So immediately they say something else, you realize that this one is not EFF. So political education is a very important instrument of that. It's also used to define our politics. It also helps to build on our campaigns. It also assists with consistency. It also helps with consistency in terms of how we get to articulate our positions. So you know that even if you go and check what you could have said in 2014, you know that because we're still within a politically clear and educated perspective, you know that there is no way I could have said something different than what we're saying now. That is the most important thing that we should always highlight when we're talking about the importance of political education. Now, this university is named after Solomon Tekisho Muhodi, who was the first Secretary General of the South African Natives National Congress. This is very important to talk about because the organization which Sol Tekisho Muhodi was called Sol Plachi because his grandfather accepted the name which was given to him by his employer. So the Plachi name was given to the grandfather of Sol Muhodi as just a name that, no, your name is Plachi, which is a picture that you are a picture. Then he accepted that name, and then the children afterward, then they used the same name of Plachi. So that is, but the original proper surname of Sol Plachi is Muhodi. His name is Solomon Tekisho Muhodi. So this university is supposed to be called Solomon Tekisho Muhodi University. That is the original name that we should be referring to this university, including the municipality of Sol Plachi should be called that. Francis Bard uses the same name. There was no any changes in terms of that. Now, the reason the South African Natives National Congress was founded, which Sol Plachi was the Secretary General of, the first SG of, was in reaction to the formation of the Union of South Africa. So from 1652, the year 1652, this is very important, fighters must pay attention to this, so that we are able to properly locate the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. So from 1652 onwards, there have been many attempts before that to colonize this place we call South Africa today. There were attempts by the Portuguese to colonize this place we call South Africa today. In the 1400s, there was one of these explorers, the colonial explorers, who colonized Mozambique, called Francisco de Almeida, who tried to colonize this place we call South Africa today. But such colonization in the earlier attempts was aborted through wars of resistance. The people he came into contact with fought and even proper defeated him and killed him. A colonial exploiter who had firepower, who had guns, who had proper armaments, but was defeated on the first attempts of colonization. Then proper colonization of this era which we call South Africa today began in 1652 with the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck, you will know, in the Cape, and then the colonization then began to take systematic and systemic forms, such that those who settled here, the colonial settlers, began to establish themselves as a permanent government, to establish themselves that this area belongs to them. Now, the most important thing which you will get to know that the first area that they got to largely occupy is the areas which are called the Cape now. Eastern, Western, and Northern Cape. And this province of the Northern Cape plays a very important role in the history of South Africa. Because when diamonds were discovered in the 1800s, in the mid-1800s, the number of colonial settlers began to come in numbers to say there is discovery of diamonds in a place we're going to call Kimberley. Then there was now a diamond rush where a lot of colonial settlers began to say, let us go and get the diamonds. They say there's diamonds there. This big hole, which is few kilometers away, if not a kilometer away, was such that it's a product of the diamond rush. In the beginning of the discovery of the diamonds, it was still at surface level. You did not need huge machines and sophisticated systems to get the diamond. Everyone else was allowed to mine the diamonds. Black people and white people. But the rush of the colonial settlers intensified that let us go to discover the diamond that we need in that part of the world. And the most important thing that I want to highlight is that then the white component of the diamond rushers, those who were rushing for diamond, then said, let us pass the laws as to how do we mine the diamonds here. Who is allowed to trade the diamond? Who is allowed to dig the diamond, to utilize it for whatever purpose? Anchored by the then governor of the Cape colony called Cecil John Rose, they said, from now on, black people are not allowed to mine the diamonds. So the first coded laws about economic exclusion was done by a chamber of business here in Kimberley. To say black people are no longer allowed to. The law doesn't permit that black people should dig the diamonds. That is the proper legislated foundation of economic exclusion, which we are fighting against through the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. So this place is very important in the struggle that we are dealing with. That. So the Chamber of Mines says, no, black people cannot mine. It's only whites. The only role that black people could do is to be assistants of otherwise the small-scale mining corporations that are being owned by the white establishment. When there was later on in the late 1800s the discovery of gold in the Witwatersrand Basin, currently called Gauteng, Johannesburg, the number of colonial settlers increased. That the reason South Africa has got the highest number of colonial settlers is because of the diamonds and the gold which was discovered here. They came to naturalize and even constituted their own governments. For one reason or another, which we are going to give the clearer context of what happened, they then constituted governments in territories, 4 territories. So you had a Cape government, which is the current Northern, Eastern, and Western Cape. And then there was the Transvaal government. Transvaal is currently what is Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Northwest, and Limpopo. And then we had a Natal government. So the entirety of KwaZulu-Natal was under the Natal administration. And then you had the current Free State as the Orange River colony. So you had 4 colonies for the most of the periods after the 1800s. So South Africa was subdivided into 4 colonies, which had absolute independence of each other. They had collaboration on many economic fronts, but there were 4 territories. Then in the late 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, the first arrivalists, the colonial settlers who arrived first, the Dutch who later on called themselves Afrikaners, and the British colonial settlers engaged in something called the Anglo-Boer War, which, by the way, involved everyone else, including black people. But they called it the Anglo-Boer War because it was a war for control of this area called South Africa. And what was the culmination of the Anglo-Boer War? Was a settlement between the English-speaking and African-speaking whites to say, let us not fight amongst each other. There is enough wealth for all of us here. Let us constitute these 4 colonies into one country. Let's unite these 4 colonies into one country, which will be based on white supremacy and common oppression of the black majority. Are we still united, fighters? I need unity today, like throughout. Real unity. Then they say, let's constitute one country out of the 4 colonies. And then it was called the Union of South Africa. And because of the military protection of the British Empire, they had to go to the British Parliament to pass a law of the Union of South Africa Act, 1909. So in the year 1909, the British Parliament, I'm sure it's still a law there, it's not repealed. The Union of South Africa Act, which said that we're going to establish one country, the Union of South Africa, which will be based on white supremacy, on the exclusion of black people from meaningful economic participation, on racism, on treating of all black people as nothing but suppliers of cheap and easily disposable labor, of non-recognition of the political rights of the black majority, of treating all black people as subhuman, to say, no, we're going to rule over them, but they can't vote. That is the foundation of this Union of South Africa, founded on racism. After the Anglo-Boer War, then they settled to say, let's form the Union of South Africa. 1909, the Act of Parliament in the British Parliament. The Union of South Africa Act of Parliament in 1909. And then this Union of South Africa was launched on the 31st of May 1910. Now, this is very important because I want to illustrate where Sol Plaatje and them come in. And they launch it, start passing the legislations. They do everything like putting up the laws, which were foundationally racist and excluding the black majority and Africans in particular. Passed the laws that forced black people into waged labor. So there's some act of parliament which they passed called the Glenn Gray Act to say that it is compulsory for black people to have waged labor so that they can be integrated into the capitalist system. That if you can't, and majority of our people, by the way, were not interested into working in the mines. Then the colonial government said that for you to be recognized as a person who must be respected, you must have wage labor, you must earn money. And some of the systematic things that they would do, they will introduce taxes for everything. There will be a tax for your domestic animals at home, for a dog. They say, no, for this dog you must pay tax. For your own cattle you must pay tax. For the randavels that you have at home, you must pay tax. In that way, they were forcing the black working class into the mines to earn a wage. Because our people did not need those. They had their own livestock. They had their own subsistence life. They had plenty. They was like, why should I go and have to work in the mine to buy what? Because we are living our own lives here. Then that Union of South Africa had to force a lot of our people into waged labor. That is when now black progressive leaders of the time, mostly the conscious ones, who were able to read and write, who were able to understand what is happening here in South Africa and in the world, they then said that we need to constitute ourselves to oppose this Union of South Africa or to ask for participation in the Union of South Africa. That is when the discussion started from 1910, 1911. And then they gathered in Bloemfontein on the 8th of January 1912. So you see like a meeting which is called in January. You can see that a lot of planning happened for the most of 1911. That is the meeting which founded the South African Natives National Congress and elected John Langalibalele Dube as the president and Solomon Tekisho Mohodi, Sol Plaatje as the Secretary General. Now, when the SANC was founded, which later on became the ANC, their demands were not one person, one vote. Their demands were not that all black people must be excluded. They said, some of us who are educated, as the chiefs, as those of us who have gone to school, at least give us some franchise. You must allow us to vote, to participate in elections. Are we still united fighters? The unity, we need that. When the ANC was founded as SANC, it was fighting for the civilized black man. That is what they were fighting for. They were saying, no, we're not saying everyone else must be voting. We're not saying everyone else must be given the wealth, the land. But some of us will understand your language, will respect you. That is what they were formed for. And because South Africa, the Union of South Africa was founded through the Union of South Africa Act in the British Parliament, their methods of struggle after formation in 1912, on the 8th of January, they sent a delegation to Britain to go and ask the royal family there to recognize a certain section of society as human beings. So you will see a photo where Sol Plaatje is there, John Langalibalele Dube is there, like wearing three-piece suits. they went to the Queen to say, no, we are actually presentable ourselves. Just recognize us into this union of South Africa of whites only. So despite the fact that their initial and foundational demands were nowhere close to revolutionary, they perceived themselves as revolutionaries at that time. Because they were saying that at least if some of us are in, we will try to represent everyone. That is the nature and form of struggle that the African National Congress took for most of the years, from 1912 onwards. But in the 1920s, where there was beginning to be some shifts in terms of the interpretation of the struggle, you will know that in 1917, globally, the most important event to take place globally in 1917 was the Great October Socialist Revolution, which was led by Vladimir Lenin in Russia. Then in the 1920s, the SANC elected J.T. Gumede as a president. In 1927, he attended the 10th anniversary of the Great Socialist October Revolution in Russia. And then when J.T. Gumede came back, he said, actually, these things that we have been doing of saying certain sections of society must be the ones who are liberated from the black population is reactionary. Let's fight for everyone. He even said that I've been to a country where there is no racism, everyone else is treated almost equally. Under the Socialist Republic of Russia. He even said that I've seen a new Jerusalem. That is what J.T. Gumede says when he comes back from Russia. He says, I've seen a new Jerusalem. And I've brought back the tools that are going to lead us into total freedom. And those tools were Marxism, Leninism, proper perspective as to how do we understand society. And guess what happened? The SANC leadership, the foundational leadership says, you can't say to us that we must demand for equality with everyone. It can't be everyone. It can't be everyone. One of the leaders even said that, are you saying that I must be equal with the people who are milking my cattle at home? No. It's only us, the civilized black men, who must be part of this freedom. And the organization continued like that. Petitions, letters to the Queen in Britain, begging for freedom from the oppressor. That is how foundationally this oldest liberation movement, so-called, used to conduct its struggle. The turning point fighters, this is very important, was in the 1940s, where the younger generation, like Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Mxolisi Majombos, Congress Mbata, Walter Sisulu, all that generation, they said that we need to form a different organization to fight against colonialism and oppression of the black majority. Then they say that the only organization which majority of our people are familiar with is this one of the South African National Natives Congress, the ANC. Then they say that let's first use something called entryism to change it from within. So entryism is when you join an organization and then you want to change its direction from within. And that generation of Nelson Mandela, Congress Mbata, Mxolisi Majombozi, A.P. Mda, Robert Sobukwe, of Anton Lembede, it's a generation that said that we want freedom for everyone. We want one person, one vote. It doesn't matter who that person is. And that generation is a generation that set as its generational mission the clarion call of freedom in our lifetime. So that generation is the generation of freedom in our lifetime. They said, we want total freedom. We are going to fight with everything humanly possible to achieve freedom in our lifetime. Are we still united, fighters? I need the unity. That is a generation of freedom in our lifetime. And the most important thing to take note is that that generation of freedom in our lifetime is the generation that when South Africa gained so-called political freedom, they were still at the forefront of their generational mission of freedom in our lifetime. That is the generation that said we're going to fight with everything. To the extent that when they went to the 40th Congress of the ANC in Bloemfontein, and you know Bloemfontein hosted a lot of conferences because Bloemfontein geographically is the center of South Africa. It's easier for everyone else to gain access from all corners of South Africa. They then were able to change the character of that organization and even elected leadership, which they thought is progressive. Put in a younger Walter Sisulu as the Secretary General. Elected Dr. J.S. Moroka as the president. Dr. J.S. Moroka from Kronstadt. And then he was brought in, he joined at the door, he was elected president inside the conference. And when he was giving the closing address of an organization he was the president of now, he says, no, thank you very much for electing me as the president of the African National Council. Then they say, oh, no, president, it's not council, it's Congress. And when the time proceeded, the freedom in our lifetime generation said we need to consult with the entirety of society as to what ideals do we espouse, what ideas do we hold together, what kind of a society do we want to build. And then they mobilized for the Freedom Charter. I'm rushing the history now. Then the Freedom Charter was adopted in 1955, which said South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. But the most important highlight in the Freedom Charter, it says the mineral wealth beneath the soil, the banks and monopoly industries shall be transferred to the ownership of the people as a whole. It even says that there is no government that can claim authority over the people unless if it is elected by all those people. And that document of the Freedom Charter became a real threat to the apartheid capitalist establishment. They said these people are very clear. They are saying the mineral wealth beneath the soil, the banks and monopoly industries shall be taken from us and be given to the people as a whole. This is socialism. Let's fight against it. And then the Freedom Charter was banned as a document. And then they said everyone else who associates with the Freedom Charter is a terrorist. To have a copy of the Freedom Charter was terrorism under the apartheid government. And then they arrested everyone, 156 people of leaders who associated with the Freedom Charter in something called the treason trial. In that treason trial, that President J.S. Moroka, who was elected after joining, he said that I am not part of these people that you are arresting me with. These people are the ones who are teaching me communism and communist ideas. I don't want to be associated with them. I actually love white people myself. And then he was released. The treason trial did not succeed to convict those because the court said that, but these are political views. But the Freedom Charter then became a rallying point for the liberation against apartheid for the very long time. All the formations that got to be founded were associating with the clarion calls of the Freedom Charter. The South African Communist Party got banned in 1950. Then every other organization that associated with the Freedom Charter was banned in 1960. And when it was banned, then there was a decision by President Nelson Mandela, part of the Freedom in Our Lifetime generation, to say that if these people are not allowing us to exist politically as a legal organization, we are going to take up arms and take political power through any other revolutionary means possible. So you see, in the constitution of the EFF, it says that we are fighting for political power, yes, through elections, but we are also fighting for political power through any other revolutionary means possible. We'll explain what is that. Then President Nelson Mandela is the one who went to training in Tanzania, in Algeria, and founded in 1961 Umkhonto weSizwe as an armed wing to fight against apartheid, to say that these people are not allowing for the organizations to exist peacefully. Let us fight against them physically. And that is what led to the arrests in what was the trial that sent Nelson Mandela, Govan Mbeki, Walter Sisulu, Elias Motsoaledi, and all of them to prison for life. Forever. They were supposed to be imprisoned in Robben Island forever. And all other organizations were banned. Until a different generation took up the struggles in the 1960s, the struggle of the Black Consciousness Movement, led by Stephen Bantu Biko, to say that these people have been banned, they have been arrested, they have been suppressed. There is no activity against apartheid here. Let's fight against apartheid as students. So the South African Students Organization, SASO, which Steve Biko led, was also organizing the people in communities in the struggle against apartheid. A student organization led by students was present in communities, also involved in a lot of projects. Tangible projects, not just to go and walk around and come back to campus. They were involved in projects which included building daycare centers and clinics. As students, they got to reignite the fire that fought against, that got to get apartheid to be destroyed. That was under the leadership of Steve Biko. The June 1976 was inspired by the Black Consciousness Movement. Almost everyone else was organized in South Africa in the post-1960 period of exiling the liberation movement and of arresting most of its leaders. Almost everyone else who got to be organized after that were organized under the banner of the Black Consciousness Movement of Steve Biko. And of course, they got to suppress him. But he had already sown the seed that brought apartheid to its knees. Because June 16, 1976 was inspired by the Black Consciousness Movement. And that June 16, 1976 is what then led to apartheid leaders and apartheid capitalists to go now to start thinking as to how do we end apartheid, because this apartheid is costly. It's even killing children in campuses. In universities, it's suppressing those who are a voice against apartheid. And after that, that is when there were rolling activities of the youth to challenge apartheid much more practically. So on the 27th of July, 2013, after we took the resolution to found the Economic Freedom Fighters, we took a walk, a memorial walk to Hector Peterson Memorial Center in Soweto to salute the June 1916 generation that fought against apartheid. That generation was very decisive. It's the one that brought the energy to end apartheid. I'm fast forwarding fighters now. Now, you would know that after 1976, 1979, COSAS is founded as a recognition of the revolutionary potential of students in campuses. And then a lot of youth congresses and youth formations are formed all over South Africa. The action now becomes much more vigilant. There is proper struggle against apartheid, protest action, to demonstrate that apartheid is not permissible. Until in the mid-1980s, where the apartheid government said, let's go to start negotiating for this change to happen. The negotiations happened with those who were in exile, those who were in prison. But it culminated in 1994, which got to bring about this political freedom that was now to say everyone else can vote. But I want to highlight something, that before the 1994 agreement could be reached, one, there had to be release of political prisoners in 1990. By then, F.W. de Klerk was president of the white South Africa. And he must go and read his release speech of President Mandela and all the political prisoners. He said, we are going to unban all political parties, we are going to release political prisoners, and we are going to start building of a new society and government, which is going to be based on the principles, the proven principles of free enterprise and capitalism. So you must go and read the release speech of F.W. de Klerk. He said, no, we can release it, but the principle is that we are going to continue doing business as usual. Actually, in the 80s, Anglo-American had released a perspective of what are the scenarios of what is going to happen. They had said that at the end of the day, we think that negotiation is going to work, and rhetoric is going to be dropped, and we're going to continue doing business as usual. The capitalist establishment said, no, we can give them political power, but the economy, we can't let go of it. And in the negotiations that happened, the CODESA negotiations to negotiate for South Africa to have its first inclusive elections where black people were going to vote. Once they had agreed on everything, on the economy, that the economy won't be touched, once they had agreed that the land won't be touched, they still could not announce the election date. Because amongst the white establishment and capitalists, they said, there is only one problem. And that problem was called the Chris Hani problem. They said, this Chris Hani has not been coming to these negotiations. He's not part of our agreement. And he's very popular amongst young people. He's on the ground. Mandela is very old. What will happen after Mandela? What if this Chris Hani takes over and then he reverses everything? He's a self-proclaimed socialist communist. He's a general secretary of the South African Communist Party. In the recently held Congress of the ANC, for additional members, he had the highest votes. You can see he's popular everywhere. What should happen to Chris Hani? On the 10th of April 1993, Chris Hani was killed by Janusz Walus from Poland. And he was arrested with Clive W. Lewis. So Clive W. Lewis, the court says it's only two people who plotted to kill Chris Hani and then they killed him. It can't be two people. So you see, the current Minister of Correctional Services here in South Africa and the Government of National Unity was a personal friend of Clive W. Lewis. The ones who plotted to kill Chris Hani. It's not possible that it's just Clive W. Lewis and Janus Swanus that plotted to kill Chris Hani. He was killed, then the 27th of April was announced as the day after he was killed that we were going to have inclusive elections for everyone else. I was still United Fighters. Now, then the elections happened. A government of national unity was constituted in 1994. But that government of national unity was already outlined in the interim constitution of 1993. That constitution said that if you get more than 20%, you are entitled to have executive deputy president of the state. If you get above 5%, you are entitled to be in cabinet. If you get 20%, you can have this number of cabinet posts. That is why in the first cabinet of President Mandela of 1994, you had F.W. de Klerk as a vice president alongside Thabo Mbeki. You had Piet Botha as the Minister of Mineral Resources. You had Cruyff van Niekerk as the Minister of Land Affairs. So all the strategic, you had Derek Kies as a Minister of Finance from the apartheid government. And then they retained Crystals as the Governor of the South African Reserve Bank. Such that, and then the Minister of Environment and the Oceans was also from the National Party government. Such that when President Nelson Mandela constituted the government, the first government, the land question, the mineral resources questions, the environment and oceans questions, and the money of the state were controlled by the same people who controlled it before 1994. They said political power we can give you. You can be ministers of labor so that you can look after unions and all of those things. Titombo Wayne. So that you can make sure that these workers are not striking every day. All sorts of things. Then they retain economic power. And once they were secured that they've got the control of every system and the laws of South Africa, they then said, no, you can go ahead, we'll still control even the laws, even to change the constitution, which was adopted in 1996. You can't do it. So after the adoption of a reactionary constitution in 1996, the whites said, no, you can go on with government. You can't change this constitution. You need 2/3 plus 7 out of the 9 provinces to change the constitution. And that time they were secured that there's no one who's going to change the constitution because it protects private property. Now, fighters, there was a lot of hope amongst all black South Africans. Everyone thought that a black government is going to bring about free education for all. It's going to build quality houses for all. It's going to bring about sustainable permanent jobs for our people. There was too much confidence that a black government will not neglect our people. So you see, like, even amongst the youth movement, you must go and check the conference themes of all the youth organizations. They were saying defending the gains of democracy as a Congress theme, seizing the opportunities of democracy as we march on towards greater freedom. That was what was happening. Now, what gave then change to this was when we were in the Congress movement from 2008 moving forward. we said that this freedom which you say we must defend of 1994, is this freedom? Is this what we have truly the freedom that our people fought for? The mines are still controlled by the minority. The banks are still controlled by the minorities. The economy is still in the control of the minorities, of the white minority. The conditions of our people have not changed. And then we ask the question, what is to be done? Then we say that let us go back and draw inspiration from the generation of freedom in our lifetime. The generation of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, of Nelson Mandela in the 1940s, of Oliver Tambo, of A.P. Mda, of Congress Mbata, of Mkolisi Majombos, of Anton Lembede. We say that let us borrow from that generation and then come with a struggle of economic freedom in our lifetime, which must be based on the non-negotiable demand for the return of our land without compensation. That must be based on the nationalization of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors of the economy. That must be based on the provision of free quality education for everyone up until university level. That must be based on building a proper developmental state that is going to empower the entirety of society and also play a role in the development of the African economy. And that is what got to be suppressed within the Congress movement. The suppression included the banishment and expulsions and all sorts of intimidations. Then towards the 26 and 27 July 2013, the question was, the struggle for economic freedom is still relevant, but what do we do with it? What do we do with the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime? And then this 26 July, 27 July that we are celebrating now was because we convened a National Assembly on what is to be done. So the National Assembly was called that. Even the banner was written, National Assembly on what is to be done. Uncle Tom's Hall in Soweto in Johannesburg. And there were three questions that were asked in that particular conference. Do we continue with the struggle for economic freedom? One, as a non-governmental organization that doesn't contest any political power. Two, do we fight for the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime within the Congress movement? In the same way that the freedom in our lifetime generation did. Or three, do we constitute a political party that is going to fight for economic freedom in our lifetime as an independent organization? And a unanimous resolution was taken on the 27th of July 2013 to constitute the economic freedom fighters as a militant, radical economic emancipation movement that is going to fight for economic freedom in our lifetime. With a clear agenda, with the non-negotiable cardinal pillars for economic freedom in our lifetime. To say that whatever we do, we must never shift on our demand that South Africa's land must be expropriated without compensation for equal redistribution. Nationalization of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors of the economy. Massive protected industrialization to create millions of jobs. Building of state capacity with the aim of abolishing tenders. Provision of free quality education, healthcare, and sanitation for all. Development of the African economy and a move that will advocate for a move from reconciliation to justice, and in an open, accountable, corrupt-free society. Those are the 7 cardinal pillars in the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. And of course, we then got to say that in such a struggle, you need ideological tools of analysis. You need to have clear ideas that are going to give you a clear perspective of how do you get there. Then we said that in character, the EFF is going to be Marxist, Leninist, and Fanonian. So the tools of analysis and guide to action is Marxism, Leninism, and Fanonian. Now, fighters, because all of us are students here, I want you to go and read 2 documents. One is the address by the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, who is the sitting president of the People's Republic of China, General Secretary Xi Jinping, when he was commemorating the 200th anniversary of the birth of Karl Marx. He said that China's rapid development of the productive forces of the economy was through proper application of Marxism-Leninism. And China, by the way, in the 1970s, had an economy per capita which was smaller than South Africa, far much smaller. China, in terms of the highest and the biggest economies in the world, was number 100 in the 1970s. But we're talking today through proper application of Marxism-Leninism. China has got the 2nd biggest economy in the world. It is going to be the biggest economy in the world in our lifetime. China has taken more than 700 million people outside of absolute poverty. It's not me, the General Secretary says, it's through the proper application of Marxism-Leninism. You must go and also check just how a country called Vietnam, which is led by the Vietnamese Communist Party, got to rapidly develop. And why do they rapidly develop? So this question was dealt with by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in the Communist Manifesto. They say that because you are not in pursuit of immediate profits, once the state is the one that develops the productive forces of the economy, such will happen faster. Because you're not looking for quick wins. You are doing that for generations to come. So that is the proper application of Marxism-Leninism, which in the current phase is about development of the productive forces. The development of productive forces means that you must build industry, you must build the economy to create jobs for our people, to develop technologies. The reason when we speak in parliament, everything we say, where is industrial development, is because we're saying, let us utilize a proper application of Marxism-Leninism to guide just how do we develop our economy, which will be able to take care of everyone. Marxism-Leninism fighters will get to know, and you must not be worried that you don't know what that is. You will get to know when time progresses. But one thing I will tell you is that it is science. Its proper application will definitely lead you into prosperity. And science means the knowledge that has been gained through observation, has been critically proven and assessed and found to be true beyond any reasonable doubt. There are no 2 answers in science. One has to be correct. And that is what we then chose, that we need Marxism-Leninism to guide the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. As an organization, we therefore exist, one as a political party, an organization that is guided by democratic centralism, democratic consultations on all the decisions that we take. But once decisions are taken, there is no more permissibility to disagree with the decisions that are taken. We say that once decisions have been taken by the entire collective, your right to disagree dwindles into insignificance. It doesn't matter what you thought before that. We're an organization in the 11 years of our existence that is now participating as public representatives in majority of the municipality councils in South Africa. With more than 1,200 public representatives, councillors, Mafia is a councillor in Nkomazi municipality, a rural municipality of Nkomazi, in Mpumalanga province, which has got a lot of potential if there can be a clear direction that must be given to Nkomazi. We exist, so I did say in the beginning that the organization has got different manifestations. One, it's an organization, it's a political party, a democratic centralist political party. It's an organization in government. As representatives in councils, as government in the city of Johannesburg, in the city of Ekurhuleni, in Mogale City, in Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality. We almost became government as well this year, if certain things should have happened differently. But we took a decision not to participate in government alongside reactionary forces. That is the decision that we took. But we will still have to answer as to how do we participate in government under the current circumstances. The other very important manifestation of the organization, it's an instrument for the ideological political warfare. That is where you should play a central role. Now, fighters, in the 2024 elections, and prior to that, the white capitalist establishment invested a lot of resources to delegitimize the economic freedom fighters. Through social media, through mainstream media, through everything else that they do. And we were not adequately prepared to counter an ideological political onslaught against the organization. Part of the reasons why the EFF did not grow in these elections is because there was concerted ideological warfare against the organization. For the first time, you had opposition parties who were not opposing the sitting government. All of them, they were opposing the EFF. The DA's primary agenda in the 2024 elections was the EFF. Action SA, Herman Mashaba was paid, I think he was paid per tweet. Every tweet he was, because every day EFF is this, EFF that. All these formations, an army organized against the EFF to delegitimize this in the eyes of society. A total ideological onslaught against the movement. That is what we got to experience. We as revolutionary activists, the conscious ones, we should be the wall that guards and protects the organization against an ideological warfare, because it has not come to an end. They have not stopped. They will continue to delegitimize the organization. They will do everything else like if it were according to them. The EFF is not supposed to exist at all. And of course, they are joined by all sorts of opportunists. A lot of resources, millions of friends, hundreds of millions of friends. Do you know everyone else who started a political party? If you say, I'm against the EFF, the open hammers will say, no, come. 10 million, 30 million rand. Go and fight them. That is what we have been dealing with. So we need to have a proper ideological fight back, which must be anchored by constant engagement and persuasion of our people. We, of course, exist as a Pan-Africanist organization. We embrace Pan-Africanism to say that gradually, the founding manifesto of the EFF says we are going to advocate for the gradual integration of the African continent in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the economy, in terms of how we get to relate amongst ourselves. That we must play a meaningful role in the development of the economy in all other parts of the African continent. That we must combine the resources that we have for common collective prosperity as Africans. Because there is a coincidence or reality that you cannot escape in the world now. Everywhere, people who look like me and you, people of African ancestry are found everywhere. They are treated like subhuman. You know, in terms of these measurements of the economy and development, the United States of America is supposed to be the most developed country in the world as of now. But go and take out the 40 million black people or people of African ancestry, and then you gauge them as a group of 40 million. Their socio-economic indications are the same as all of us here in the African continent. Go to Brazil. Brazil has got the second highest black population in the world after Nigeria. In terms of people of African ancestry, go and take them out and measure their socio-economic progress. They are the same as all of us. Why is it that all collective black action doesn't lead into success? Show me one successful African country in the African continent which has developed its industry, which controls its own economy without colonial and neo-colonial influence. If we do not do anything about that, it means all of us who are alive here, we will live and we will all disappear. Our great-children and great-grandchildren will still be subject of white supremacy of neo-colonialism. They will still be domestic workers and gardeners of white people. Those that started the struggle before, they thought that no, our grandchildren are going to live better than us. We are not different from Solomon Tekisho, Mukhodi. We are more or less in the same conditions. The question that we're asking, when we came with the struggle of economic freedom in our lifetime, was questioning whether we have got freedom. That do we even categorize this political freedom as real freedom? And the question which all of us must ask moving forward is that, is the freedom coming tomorrow? What do we do? Do we live? What do we do moving forward? How do we fight to attain real economic freedom in our lifetime? Thank you very much.
Homizani Fire Brigade, Ayumbli Lolo. Homizani Fire Brigade, Ayumbli Lolo. Oye nabantwana bam, oye nezingane zam, oye nabantwana bam. Oh, yeah, andiniva man. Homizani Fire Brigade. Homizani Fire Brigade. Homizani Fire Brigade. Homizani Fire Brigade. Oh yeah, nabantwana bam. Oh yeah, nezingane zam. Oh yeah, nabantwana bam. Oh yeah, one last time. Obizane fire brigade. Obizane fire brigade. Obizane fire brigade. Ayumlilolo. Oh yeah, nabantwana bam. Oh yeah, nezingane zam. Oh yeah, nabantwana bam. Oh yeah, nezingane zam. Kanibizi fire brigade. Chu, ayumlilolo. Kanibizi fire brigade. Chu, ayumlilolo. Oh yeah, nabantwana bam. Oh yeah, neze. Oh yeah, nabantwana bam. Oh yeah, neze. Amanda. Awetho. Happy birthday, EFF. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, EFF. Happy birthday. Long live to our Deputy President. Long live. Long live to our Deputy President. Long live. Thank you, TP. Thank you. Thank you, TP. Thank you. Sikuvile, TP. Sikuvile. Sikuvile, TP. Sikuvile. Sifundile, TP. Sifundile. No, thank you very much to the Deputy President of the EFF for that political school. DP, I saw some fighters who had handbooks and pens as you were speaking. And I found that to be very encouraging because it means they are going to go back and not only enrich themselves, but also enrich their student communities and their communities back home. Fighters, we have come to the conclusion of our program. I want everyone to remain here as we allow the leadership, and thereafter, Councillor Mafia will be giving us very important announcements. So I do not want you guys to rush. Let's allow the leadership, the phone, sorry. Let's allow the leadership, you're saying it's fine. Let's allow the leadership to go. Thereafter, we're going to deal with announcements. Because there's a very important program that we must also do. Remember, we're in a birthday mood. It's the birthday of the EFF. So the whole institution must feel that it's the birthday of the EFF. It can't just be business as usual. We are young people. We can't just sit down here the whole time. We must vavavoom the campus. They must feel us. All those who did not come must be jealous. They must wish that they were here with us. With that being said, we want to stop. Thank you very much, Deputy President and Treasurer General.
Manda! Awetho! Thank you very much, fighters. We are not going to keep you here. All that which I'm here for is to make announcements in relation to what are we going to do from here. Comrade students of Solomon Itsekiso Mukhodi University. Because from now on, we are not students of Sol Black. We are educated now of who we really are, so that we stop lying to ourselves that we are Sol Black people, because the grandfather of Solomon happened to like the surname of his master. And then now he took the Black surname, which his kids then continued to use as the man was no longer alive. So comrades, indaba ikanje. We cannot continue as students of Solplaki with an attitude of behaving like we exist in a country that is not politicized. Some of you guys here were angry with me when you heard that I called Solplaki a high school. Amanda. Part of the reasons why I did that is because unlike other universities, Solplaki students are treated like high school learners. You guys, you are not even allowed to enjoy yourself in this institution as people who have went out of high school. The only difference between you and a student who is in high school now is that you no longer wear a uniform. But the attitude of the university towards you guys is the same as those of young learners in high school. So the reason why I said you are in high school is because I wanted you guys to be angry and take a decisive action to remove yourself from those conditions and decide that you are going to be students instead of pupils and learners of grade 12. So this is what students do. The Deputy President was saying it here. Students engage themselves in programs that seeks to build and transform the country which they wish to form a future or a part of a future of. You students of Solplaki, after graduating here, you'll be reintegrated back to society. If you don't learn to lead while you are still in these institutions, you will not lead when you are back in your communities. You won't be able to bring meaningful change in the communities where you stay. I know that sometimes politics appear that we're being lied to. But to be honest with you guys, the EFF has given an alternative to South Africa. And if there's any organization that is highly supported by students, it is the Economic Freedom Fighters. Because of our ideology, because of our program of action, and because of that which we stand for. But Solplaki, I don't get that feeling when I'm in Solplaki. I was here for 2 weeks. You guys are going on and about with your own businesses as if everything is fine here in Solplaki. As I'm speaking here, there are students now who are about to be evicted from their residencies. You might be leaving this lecture, going back home, you will find that Indian who took all your bags outside, if you are not careful. But I am here to encourage all of you that, guys, let us unite in making sure that we get the freedom that we want in Solplaki and make sure that Solplaki is changed from being a high school to a university. We can only do it when we are united as the student populace. So this is what I want to say now. Yesterday, I took time to move around in the city. And I passed through a place called... what is that place, Deputy President? Where we went. In a place called Queens. Where I was told that you comrades go there every Thursday to enjoy yourself because revolutionary waters are made to be of lesser price. Now, but when I entered Queens, I saw students in majority enjoying themselves, getting themselves, intoxicated. But now the challenge that I have is, that place there of the Queens can unite us. But when there are problems in the institutions, you guys don't want to be united. Now I want to ask for one favor from all of you. I'm not addressing, I'm announcing. That when we leave this venue now, let us create an environment of, that is politicized by students. So that we can also get an opportunity to make contribution like your Mandelas, the Sisulus, and everyone else that the DP was teaching us about. And it all starts by getting involved. So we're very grateful that you guys have come here today. But from here, in as much as I saw you there in the Queens, we also wish to invite all of you guys. Kuthi uma sisuka namhlanje ngoba uLosihlanu sikumudi yokucelebrate ibirthday ye-EFF. Asikwazi ukulala. Uma sisuka la, Amanda. Uma sisuka la, we've got students here from University of Limpopo. They are here with us. Wait. Don't clap a lot so that we can urgently move. We've got students here from Eastern Cape. They are coming from different universities in Eastern Cape. We've got students here from KZN. They are here with us. So wait, comrades. The reason that made them to come here today is because they saw a poster that said, after the lecture of the DP, all young people of Solomon Tsekiso Mukhadi University will be in the streets of Kimberley welcoming the birthday of the EFF tomorrow. So comrades, when we move here, the EFF back is waiting for us outside. We want to fill up the streets of Kimberley. As students, we are promising all of you, we are not going to take a lot of time. Just for 1 hour, we want to create a moment that the EFF has arrived. The EFF is in Kimberley. So, fighters, as we move, we are going to go to other residencies as we move in town. We are going to wake everyone up. With their gowns, they are going to come to the streets and join us. After that, comrade students, when they've joined us, we're going to meet at the last place where we're going to give the final address. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, taxis will be in all residencies and here in what do you call the